We don't see us as victims of this disease. We see ourselves as survivors. I was 2 when I had what we now know to be the polio virus. I didn't have real weakness and difficulty, I would say, until my late 20s, early 30s.
This is another kind of compression technique where I'm just kind of holding her here. And sometimes I just like to see what her muscles are going to do. Are they going to allow me to move her or not? Some days better than others.
Aches and pains and stumbling were just me. My leg spasming, my leg flipping, twitching. That was my norm. Post-polio syndrome is a result of neurons that were overused and are now dying. In my case, the polio virus has been gone for 68 years. The damage that it did is forever. What we try and do is keep awareness. Polio has not been eradicated. It's deeply personal for us.
Today, officials here in New York announced that they found polio virus in the city's wastewater.
Governor Kathy Hochul has declared a polio state of emergency in her state here in New York.
Polio has been detected in sewage samples from 4 counties in the New York metropolitan area and the city itself.
Wild polio was eradicated in the U.S. in 1979. It's a different version of polio that's in New York now, okay? But wild polio was eradicated in 1979, and it left everybody's field of sight. And that's what's happened. We have a generation, my kids would have no knowledge of this whatsoever if it wasn't for their mom.
Polio is a virus that usually enters through the mouth and through the intestines. Until we had a vaccine, which first became available in 1955, there was really little you could do about it. What would happen when you had polio is the virus would travel to the lining of the brain, spinal cord, and then it could affect the nerves that would help your muscles move, including muscles that would allow you to breathe. But most people with polio never knew they had it. Only about 1 of 200 people who got the virus were paralyzed by it. That's what made it so frightening. You didn't know who you were going to catch it from. So parents were very, very scared of this virus, which could cause children to be permanently paralyzed.
It was a heartbreaking time. It really was. And people believed that the virus stayed with you. So if a child a year later had it, they still wouldn't let their child go across the street and play because they could still get it. Well, the virus had been gone for a year from the child's body, but the residual remained. The reality of the stories we hear, which are all the time, a physician discounted this. What's post-polio syndrome? Polio? That was years ago. That can't be part of this. Your symptoms can't relate it to polio. You're 75 and you had polio when you were 6 months old. We hear this all the time.
We talk about overcoming a disability, but it's really learning how to live with a disability and how to manage and how to do things in a different way. I was 12 when I had polio. I guess I've learned to live with a disability, to figure out ways of managing to get and to do what I want to do. Between the 50s when I got polio and now, and with the ADA, things are more accessible. When I take my braces off, I do have a power chair to go in and out of the bathroom. And as I said, my husband, who also had polio, had an office down in the basement, so he put in a lift to the basement. Polio, there are sort of different types. I basically had the spinal, which is from the waist down. And there are times when you'll see people with a weak arm and a weak leg. And my husband sort of had a combination because one leg grew longer. I had one weak leg, one stronger leg. My close friends that I had and lived with, they have all passed away. But thank goodness now we do have our polio network that Carol Ferguson has created from our local polio group.
If you notice the pictures, the advocacy pictures, everybody's smiling because we're not victims. But look how happy everybody is. That's when we're in community with one another, we're good. It doesn't hurt quite so much. We launched the PA Polio Survivors Network, papolionetwork.org, in 2014. Our mission was, and has remained, to be in service to polio survivors and their caregivers. The other piece of our mission is to support the efforts of the Rotary Foundation to eradicate this terrible disease.
I don't think we should dismiss this case in New York. You can assume there are a couple thousand other people who were infected. You can assume that the virus spreads in the community, which is not a problem as long as you're vaccinated. As long as you're vaccinated, even if you were vaccinated decades ago, you will likely be protected. So what this case tells you is let's keep vaccination rates up and not get complacent about this virus.
The risk of what's happened to me and the other survivors all over Philadelphia, all over the United States, all over the world, why would you take that risk with your child? Polio has not been eradicated.